Good afternoon, Jay First Baptist Church. I'm sorry I did not make a 10 o'clock meeting. I had two meetings this morning, one on Zoom, on the internet, and the other one was was live at the association office. And we've been here, been very busy this morning. I just want to go over a couple of items before we get into the text for today. We're going to be looking at Malachi chapter 4, just a couple verses there, but let me just go over a couple of items that are happening around our area and a message, some from the Florida Baptist president. I got to hear Tommy Green today and talk with him a bit on the Zoom, on our Zoom meeting. But one of the things is we're looking at churches all over the country, and especially in our state, are looking at reopening their live services, which is a wonderful opportunity. Some are actually going to start this coming Sunday with their very first services. Some of us, like us, we've been doing this since Mother's Day. But I just want to go over a couple of items that were shared. One of the topics that were mentioned was Vacation Bible School. We are still going to discuss this. In fact, this coming Sunday, we're going to be having a deacons meeting before service, and then right at the end of our service, we're going to be having a business meeting. And at that time, we will for sure set up what will happen with VBS this year, whether we postpone it to later in the summer or whether we wait till next year. And it's going to be based a lot on how we're looking at things. Nothing's been made and set in concrete as of yet. We want to minister to our children. But I will say this, if for some reason we are not going to do a VBS programming this summer, we will be trying to do other things and make it available for our children so that they do have some fun activities this summer. And it also, we want to give our parents that have been with their children all since about the end of March all the way through now, that we want to also give everyone a break and just give the children a good opportunity to kind of, just enjoy themselves, and include some Bible study with it too. And we're looking at some other options too for our children. Also for our youth, I know Brother Jory is going to be working on doing some possible youth activities also throughout the summer. We want to gradually get back into the swing of things. Also too, if you watched online our services this past Sunday, you will have noticed that the video was much cleaner, the sound was much better, and it was just an overall a much better video. And this is because we're using a new camera. It is called a Zoom Q2N 4K, meaning it will, at its highest resolution, film in 4K. Now when I'm doing it live Facebooking like I am right now, it's not quite that high, but I think it's still at a high definition at like 1,000 something. So it's just in good shape. It does a good job. So we're looking forward to this camera doing a better job for us as we go. Just a couple of other things too. I want to remind you, please keep the Boutwell family in prayer. That Donald went to be with the Lord this past weekend. Also too, we have some of those that are recovering injuries. Maxine has had a fracture in her hip. And I think she is on the mends, but please keep her in prayer. And also to keep Brother Bill Bryan in prayer. He had work on his knee done, and also too we have some others that have been under the weather. Keep them in prayer also. We also are just looking forward to some great things happening this summer. Now, I know a number of people have asked about my mother and father-in-law, and they are doing much better. My mother-in-law was in the hospital for a couple of days, and she is now recovering from pneumonia. And my father-in-law has been doing better, and same with my father. Also, to remember to keep Debbie Killam's family still in prayer, as well as Janice Davis's family, and Miss Carlisle's family too. And we need to continue to pray for their peace and their comfort by God. Just to go over, well, this isn't going to be really long, but one of the verses that I'd like to cover, and I am using a different camera here, let me just see here if I could just adjust this just a little bit. Okay, we're all set with that. We're good with that. Okay. Now, if this isn't going quite good, we will try to work on this a little bit. I might go back to using the other camera in my office. It looks like we are having a little bit of issues with this. I'll have to work with this with this new camera here in my office. But I want us to go to Malachi chapter 4 and the last 3 verses. And this is Malachi's last statement at the very end of the Old Testament. And he ends with a promise. He says, "Remember you the law of Moses, my servant, which I commanded to him in Horeb for all Israel, with the statutes and the judgments. Behold, I will send you Elijah, the prophet, before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. And he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to the fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse." Now, this is a reminder and a promise. The reminder is to remember the law of Moses for the Jewish nation. Remember God's ways. And even in our time today, I know this was directed directly to the children of Israel, the Jewish nation. But for us as children of God, those of us who know Christ as Savior, we need to remember and be reminded that we need to follow after God's ways, even in tough times, even when we're stressed, even when things don't seem to be going quite right. Pitching temper tantrums is not being mature in our spiritual lives. We need to be careful in that area because it is so easy to forget. But on the other hand, too, we're reminded by God through the writing here of Malachi, God speaking, "Behold, I will send you Elijah, the prophet, before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord." That's very, very interesting. Malachi wrote after the time of Elijah. Elijah has already been gone. Well, what does this mean? If the Bible's totally true and has no errors, this is talking about what we find in Matthew chapter 11, verse 14. How John the Baptist was called Elijah, and he would make straight the way to prepare for the coming Messiah. And we know that not only did John the Baptist baptize Jesus, but he preached the coming day of the coming of the Messiah. And he preached that all of Israel needed to turn back to God and to turn away from their evil deeds. And what this promise is that there's going to come an Elijah, that second Elijah, which is John the Baptist, the precursor to Christ. And because he's the precursor to Christ, that with being a precursor, he is also going to prepare the way for the Messiah to come to bring salvation. And because of that, it's going to come before the dreadful day of the Lord, which is going to be, it hasn't happened yet. So salvation will come through Christ. Now you might say, well, I know that. That's understandable. That's common knowledge for the Christian. Well, it is, but it also is a reminder for us. Even when times can get dark and times can be uneasy, that we need to remember our salvation is in the Lord. And not just our spiritual salvation that we accept Christ as Savior, but our salvation in this life is in the Lord. Sad to say, governments can't do it. And leaders can't do it. People are not going to be our salvation. Now they can make things good. They can be a help. They can give us assurance. But only true salvation comes through Christ and through God Himself. And we need to remember that, fellow Christian, that when we step out of our house and we go into this community at large, in Jay or wherever you're at, Milton, Berrydale, up in the Bruton area, wherever you step out of your house from, in Flomaton, that we are to know that we are the ambassadors of God in our community, and we need to show the very love of God, and that's so important. I hope today that each and every one of you have a most blessed day. God bless and shalom.